Howdy, my name is Astroma, and welcome back to the Cosmic Chaos, or if you're new here, welcome. So, ignoring my absence for a moment here, I have come back onto YouTube. Oh, and I got some Twisted Wonderland goodies for you guys. I like Twisted Wonderland, right? Right, of course you do, So we all know by now, through previous Draw With Me videos, that I absolutely love doing style studies of artists and media that I like. Twisted Wonderland being one of my favorite things. But holy shiitake mushrooms on a platter, Yana Taboso, whose style is quite the challenge to replicate. Now, I'm admittedly still learning how to really break down the proportions of the regular style, but that's the fun of it. The proportions I think I'm getting a strong grasp on. But no, as fate would have it, I have a weakness when it comes to replicating art styles, and it is by far the most ironic thing. Coloring. We'll get on to that here in a short bit. This one's a long video, so grab a snack, maybe some art references, and study along with me as I conquer this weakness of mine. And for the hell of it, I'm going to talk all through my process for each of these studies. Okay, let's go! So, my dear little voidlings, I bet you're wondering how on earth we got to this point. Well, my dears, I had the impulsive thought to study the Twisted Wonderland art style again. Particularly the illustrated cards from the game. You know, like those SSR cards that look so beautiful, as well as their groovy versions. So I was originally going to draw Leona Kingscholar at first, and I didn't like how it turned out, so I think it was because I tried to use the sprite work for his main model. Oh well, you live and you learn. So being the Malleus simp that I am, I chose Sunataru as my little guinea pig. Or I guess you could say my guinea dragon. Heh. I'm not funny. Which kind of leads me to one of my tips when it comes to doing style studies for literally any art style in both media and online. Variety in character design is key. Although I don't do this and I am primarily sticking with Malleus for the first 3 studies, it is important to study different character designs within said media. Some characters may have big round eyes while others have narrow eyes. Some may have wild hairstyles, some may have hair that's neatly done. Some characters are tall, some are small, and their body types will vary greatly. So don't be afraid to pick a character outside of your comfort zone and draw a handful of characters you think you wouldn't draw in a million years. However, I do understand not wanting to get too far out of your comfort zone, especially considering doing style studies is already getting you out of said comfort zone. So if you aren't comfortable in, drawing a certain character outside of your comfort zone, then by all means, you do not have to draw that character in this point of time. If you want to draw your favorite character in this style, then go for it. It is your style study after all. With that being said, of course, besides getting out of your comfort zone, having this variety will test your observational skills. All those parts that I mentioned earlier, that's the kind of variety people in real life have, and that's what a lot of character designers will tend to focus on when creating characters. Some people are more muscular in build, while some are curvy, some are skinny, and some people have an average build. Face shapes are also varied. So much of the human body is a combination of various physical traits, and in turn, that is often reflected in good character design. If there's an interest in a video discussing character design, do feel free to let me know in the comments, because I could ramble about that all damn day. Now let's talk about this first study, and maybe talk about my process for a little bit. I chose the Swimsitter Malleus card as my first point of study. I really liked how the lighting and shading looked in this card, and Malleus' expression looked fun for the fact that he looks both a little smug and both unhinged, but also not really. Almost giving you, I'm going to do something to this soon, but you're not going to know what it's going to be until I do it. That kind of vibe. Figuring out how to render this study in the subsequent studies was a challenge, to put it very lightly. But upon closer inspection of the card, I noticed that while it may appear to be cel shading, that being a sort of, I guess you would say hard shading? I don't know. Someone who's more experienced in cel shading, please sound off in the comments. The style is actually more of a painterly look, and it's very deceptive in that regard. So instead of using the SC pen and blending brush like I usually do, I used a mix of the transparent watercolor brush and the opaque watercolor brush. Now for these studies, I didn't want to solely focus on making the proportions 1-to-1. After all, the whole point of this video is to focus on, well, the coloring. Which is extremely ironic considering just how much, like, coloring and rendering is a major strong suit for me in my usual art style. Which is a shame, but tackling weaknesses in my own abilities, especially when it comes to replicating art styles, is majorly important to me as an artist. I like having a variety of skills and techniques under my belt, and learn from the artists I really like and take inspiration from. And besides, that's kind of the whole deal for me when it comes to improving my art. Alright, so, the process. Oh boy. The process. The line art wasn't too bad for this part. I did decide to put the highlights in with the line art layer, and oh my god, with how thin the lines are, I am not surprised I defaulted back to the G pen on the 10 setting, which that's the thinnest I will go in my regular artwork. Oh, and you may have noticed earlier that I had to set up my canvas again. Well, guess what decided to crash and made me lose a lot of progress? Fortunately, I did take a screenshot of what I had of the sketch, and I was able to trace over it after, you know, copying and pasting it, but holy shit, I was not happy in the slightest. And, you know what? It happens. It's not the first time anything Twisted Wonderland has decided to give the middle finger to Clipseo paint. So for these studies, I just opted to just do portraits, like, or just bust shots in general. I am not confident enough to do a full body study of these characters yet. So if things look a little weird, like for example the little metal bits on his dorm uniform, that's why I made the choice to just basically say, fuck it, we're doing bust shots for these bitches. I believe the sketching and line art alone took me 2 hours on this one, which, you know, I've had longer sessions where I would just, you know, sketch and line shit. I mean, hell, doing comic pages, it usually takes me like an hour and a half if I decide to, you know, sketch the page and then line it after, so that way I can add the flat colors. But any hoozles. I will say this particular study looks the most accurate in terms of proportions. And as you can see, I am trying my best to figure out like how to really proceed with, you know, the fact that it's deceptive in the shading style. Like, it looks like shading, but it's not, you know? You get what I mean. So, weird thing, I don't know why I did this, but I decided to focus on the neck and chest area. Normally I would do the face when figuring out the light source, but I guess I was just like, no. I really wanted to avoid color picking from the reference image, though I do occasionally do that. It's not gonna be like that too much in terms of rendering. Like, I may pick out a color that I really like and want to put in my own style, but other than, well, not style, but the study, I mean. And, yeah. And what personally helps me when it comes to rendering, regardless if it's just my regular art style or not, is obviously rendering the face first, or I guess more so the skin. If I focus solely on the head and the neck first, especially in the more dynamic lighting, that in a way does help me with figuring out dynamic lighting for the rest. I don't know, that's just how I roll, I guess. Oh yeah, for whatever reason, I chose not to focus too much on using blending modes. I don't know why. I guess I just wanted to try to make it as accurate as possible, which, you know, I think with this first study, it's accurate enough, especially on the skin, which turned out amazing in my honest opinion. Not to toot my own horn, but toot motherfuckers. Never let me do that again, please. But anyways, I'm surprised with how I was able to render the skin in this style, and that gave me the confidence boost I needed to continue with other parts of this style study. And, yeah, so even though Malleus is my favorite character, there is a reason why I draw his horns, you know, smooth. Because holy hell, do you know how hard it is to keep track of how many segments there are in the horns? And you have to make sure you don't miss a single one, otherwise it looks off. Yeah, I had this problem with not just this study, but for the other two studies, which is just, I wanted to pull my hair out. Like, just at least drawing out the horns. Rendering them was actually really fun. I really liked how the light and shadows kind of bounce off each other on the horns. Yeah. I also wasn't really too sure on the leather bits. And by leather bits, I mean like his neck thingy and the cape, but I think with how those turned out, again, it just gave me the confidence boost I needed to continue doing these style studies. And truth be told, I had a lot of fun. The mouth, it only took one layer, and I think I did use a multiply layer. I don't remember. I will have to look in the files later. Editing me if put in a confirmation if I did use multiply layer or not. Something that I kind of noticed, at least with the eyes, is that they are not as complicated as the rest of the body and other elements of the design. Like, they're relatively simple in all compared to the grand scheme of things. Ugh, sorry, hiccup there. And now we get to what's arguably my favorite part, that being the hair. I mean, let's be real, I already like drawing hair in my normal style. And this is where I kind of learn, like, just how important gradients are, because it does affect how the hair is rendered, and well, not just the hair, but other parts of the studies too, which I promise I will get to that in a later part of this video. Just hang tight. I truthfully wasn't sure, like, the best approach for the hair, so I opted to try to keep the transparent watercolor brush kind of at a tip instead of rounded to kind of get those pointed shadows. And I believe this is where I did use the most multiply layers, or at least just one or two. Again, editing me if you would be so kind as to put in a confirmation as to what exactly I did layer-wise, that would be lovely. With the hair, it was interesting trying to replicate it because of how intricate and flowy it is, which, you know, I like me some flowing hair, but goddamn, rendering in this style is a nightmare, though it does kind of put into perspective of how I usually do things. But, you know, you live and you learn. With the hair, like in terms of highlights, I think I learned the most from this study, because, like, hair is reflective, like, and it will reflect the light, like, especially if it's in one area. If it's in one strand, then it's obviously just gonna, you know, pass through it. Well, not pass through it, but you get what I mean. But yeah, the hair is, unsurprisingly, my second favorite. My first favorite being how the skin turned out. Oh, and if I take random pauses here and there, it's because I'm either pacing around my room, taking a break, or just sitting there staring at the wall or at the screen going like, how am I going to approach this? Because this is intimidating as hell. But so long as I stuck to what I see in my reference, then I knew I was solid. Surprisingly, I love how the outfit looked too, and just, I'm sorry, I'm just really proud of this study, and we haven't even gotten to the final image yet. But any hoozles. If I had to say which was my least favorite part of the study, it would have to be those little metal bits. Admittedly, I did kind of run out of steam for the day, and so I just opted to just do my best, and I can probably focus on doing metals at a later time. In essence, ran out of spoons for the day and I needed to give my wrist a break. So, yeah. And with that, the first style study is done. There are a couple things I would definitely love to fix with this one. However, for my first attempt, I am in love with this so much. Now, again, like, I would fix the middle bits, but other than that, I gained some brain cells on the first day of studying. So with that being said, let us move on to day 2 of the studies, because day 2 was something else, man. You know, part of me wants to slap past me for picking this particular one, because holy fuck, the amount of flowing hair in this one nearly made me have an aneurysm. Now, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, the second day of studying this art style's coloring. And oh boy, do I have another weakness that I was definitely forced to confront besides rendering. But it's in a daytime setting. Why did I choose this card again? Because, like, I prefer having more moody lighting and more dynamic stuff. So, this was kind of a teeny tiny issue for me. But that's not for a while now. Obviously starting to sketch, and for whatever reason, I really like how the face turned out on this one. At least in the sketching phase. I decided to not complicate things too much, so I just, you know, separated the head, neck, and part of his chest and called it a day, because, look at the hair, man. Just look. But nevertheless, I carried on. Now, even though I said I was happy with how the face looked in the sketch, the proportions were still off, which I know I said that I wasn't going to make it one-on-one, but this one's kind of my least favorite in terms of proportions, which, you know, it's fine. Not every part of a drawing can be a winner. I did trace over the horns in the reference image, however, I don't use that in my sketch. I don't know why I do this, but if there is a part of a drawing that I struggle with, I will take the reference, I will trace over it, and then I will draw what I see based on what I traced. I don't know why I do this, I just do. I am simply weird like that. Not gonna lie, not drawing the hair at first led to a very cursed image. And I shared this with some peeps in a server I'm in, and well, Baldius became a thing. Baldius cannot hurt you, he cannot exist. Or he does not exist, I should say. If I'm gonna say me, I may as well do it right. Man, I miss doing this. I'll miss the more rambly bits too. Anywho. Remember, my main focus is coloring. But why am I focusing solely on the coloring and not just, you know, doing the whole thing, like the whole 9 yards, like making sure it looks proportionally accurate and all of that? Well, that leads me to my next tip when it comes to studying art style. Or actually, better yet, just art in general. Don't eat the entire elephant. Now, what do I mean by this? If you have ever heard this phrase, break the elephant down, then you'll be familiar with its meaning of breaking a big problem into more manageable pieces. Like, okay, it is admirable to want to take on a daunting task all in one go. However, you're only just going to burn yourself out. Which, if I may go on a bit of a small side tangent, it's kind of why I really dislike the advice just practice as an adult compared to when I was a little baby artist. Like, it's not only because of how vague it is, but it's also because it's, well, no, it is just the vagueness of it. Like, you're not going to figure out, like, what it is you need to improve on unless you ask the right questions and just, okay, you know what? I'm actually going to save this for a future video because that is not the main focus here. But just know that I do have personal beef with this particular advice of, you know, just practice and and just going at it in one go without knowing what you're doing. When studying another artist's art style, there is so much that's going to differ from your own style. For example, some artists prefer to lean more towards realistic proportions, while some prefer more exaggerated proportions. Some may prefer to have a painterly style, while some prefer a more comic book style. Some like thin, smooth lines, while some like sharp, jagged lines, or hell, they may not even do line art at all. Etc., etc., etc. Art as a whole is an infinite spectrum of stylistic choices, all of which are created by studying the fundamentals, adding a little bit of experimentation, and Frankensteining their own influences and likes that they themselves curated over the course of their lives. This being said, however, that really shouldn't be a roadblock, especially for beginners wishing to learn from their idols. So for beginners and even advanced artists alike, allow me to ask some questions to get the gears turning. What draws you to that particular art style you are trying to study? Is it the way the artist draws expressions? Is it their skills in anatomy and how they're able to warp proportions to fit their style? Are there any design elements that appeal the most to you? Does the rendering style seem like something you are most attracted to? Do they prefer having colorful works? Do they prefer grayscale? Or do they use grayscale first to nail down the shading and then they do color overlays on top of it? Like, can they seemingly go in without a sketch and paint like a pro? Do they need those guidelines? Asking yourself these questions and other questions as well can help you break down which particular area you wish to study at this point in time. In the case of what I'm trying to do, I'm absolutely in love with how dynamic and deceptively painterly the shading and coloring is in the cards of Twisted Wonderland. It's because of this particular art style. It just made me want to experiment with dynamic lighting and shading within my own works, and it's how I got the rendering style that I do today. When you know what's your biggest weakness, but that said weakness just so happens to be your favorite part of another artist's style, that motivation to study it will come to you, even when you're not at that skill level where you think, oh, I can just replicate this one-to-one. I mean, these are studies after all. You don't have to get them on the first try, so don't sweat it. Again, these are just studies. Allow yourself the grace to make mistakes. Allow yourself to take your time with these studies. And overall, I would just say my biggest bit of advice is to be kind to yourself. You are learning one skill among many when it comes to art. As you improve, then so will your observational and technical skills. Hell, you may be able to one day, through replicating and applying what you've learned to your own work, you'll find that you'll improve a lot. I mean, hey, don't sweat it. Just have fun with it and focus on one element at a time. Instead of, tackling the entirety of the artist you like style. And in the case of your own art style, don't try to force yourself to do something that isn't fun for you. You can add or take away elements of your style, allow yourself to experiment. And just never stop learning. You can do this. I believe in you, friendo. Back onto the second study, I've come to realize that I had unknowingly tackled another weakness of mine. Actually, two weaknesses. They're relatively minor in the grand scheme of things, but they were weaknesses that I needed to tackle anyways. That being drawing the ears, particularly the inner parts of the ears, and drawing hair in motion. Listen, I never said that I had a strong grasp on the things I like drawing in my personal art style. But anyhoozles. Surprisingly, the study turned out pretty good for a daytime scene. Lining and rendering the hair was a nightmare to do, but it was very much worth it, especially with how it kind of helps the shape language of this particular study. The horns, I'm not the proudest of in terms of rendering. I feel like I could have pushed the darker blues a little more. And I would definitely fix the eyes, next time. They are a little disproportionate, I'm not gonna lie. That being said, although in my personal opinion, this study is the weakest of the three that I've done making a final image with applying what I learned, this was a fun one. I especially love how the earring turned out. I've never done something like that. And yeah, here's the final study for day 2. Again, there are some things that I could change, much like the first one, but there are elements that I do like. I do like how the shirt turned out. I think that's probably the biggest thing I'm the most proud of. And again, like the rendering the eyes and the face, I mean, for a daytime scene, it's actually not too shabby. So, all I did was just take another break because, ow, my wrist. Just kidding, my wrist did not hurt, but I was burnt out. But any hoozles. Now that day 2 is done, let's move on to the next day of this weird endeavor of mine. So I wanted to challenge myself. That's it. Good night, everybody. Nah, I'm just kidding. But seriously, I did want to challenge myself on this one. I had a hard time picking from the dorm uniform card, both the regular and the groovy version, the New Year's Malleus card, the Birthday Bloom groovy art, the Gargoyle Studies Club card, and the Scalding Sands card. I actually don't know the name of that one, so if anyone has played that event, please let me know. So I stuck with the Platinum Jacket groovy card for Malleus, but on the condition that I had to draw the hands as my little challenge for myself. Listen, it was the use of color theory and that unhinged smile Malleus has in the card. And I also really wanted to draw hands. Like, they looked so fun, man, and I miss drawing hands. Besides hair, hands are my favorite thing to draw, and obviously eyes and muscular characters. I mean, hands are so expressive, man. Anywho, I am rambling! Out of the 3 studies I did prior to my final drawing, this one is my absolute favorite. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the other 2 and like certain elements that I find that I had the greatest strengths in. I mean, it was this one where I really started to see significant progress and maybe started to nail down how the rendering is done in this particular style. I mean, as well as other things, of course. I have the official art book, and in it, there's a section where it breaks down how the cards are made. It did make mention of using gradients during the rendering process, and not gonna lie, this was one of those cases where I got confused about what that exactly meant in the beginning. But as I studied the cards more, it clicked. The gradation in certain spots actually makes sense, especially in a more dynamically lit piece like this one. I noticed how when I applied the colors for both the light and shadows, it helped elevate the darkest shadows and helped with areas closest to the light source. Like the hair! I don't know why it took me until I actually started doing these studies to finally understand like what the book meant when it broke down the process of illustrating a card. But you know what? Better late than never to grasp something. But also, for the love of God, never let me read anything when I'm sleep deprived and stressed as hell. Now, as for this art process, honestly, with how the sketch turned out, I almost didn't want to line and color it, but alas, it's a good thing I preserved the sketch layer, because lord, this had to have been my cleanest sketch yet. Anywho, that was off script. Like I mentioned earlier, I really began to nail down how the rendering is done. This plus the other 2 studies, I mean, they all took me roughly 4 hours each, with all that being from copying the references to the best of my ability. Even though that's not the main focus, and I know I keep harping on that, but it's true. I mean, with that being said, I spent a total combined rough estimate of 12 hours on these 3 studies alone. And that's not even including the time I spent on the final drawing to apply what I learned from this shit. I mean, like, why didn't anyone stop me? Like, why wasn't I stopped? Why am I ambitious? Like, why am I so stubborn as well? But seriously, all jokes aside, I still think that doing these studies was absolutely worth it in the end. I had a lot of fun, like, thinking, like, what the artist would have done, like, what choices they would have made. And honestly, it really helped in more ways than one. I tackled more weaknesses than I thought I would, and I tackled the biggest weakness when it came to replicating art styles that I really love. And I think this was a good exercise for me, just in general. I learned that I apparently have other, like I mentioned, more minor weaknesses. The ears. But in a way, it just, I don't know. I learned a lot during this whole process, and not gonna lie, after doing this third study, I actually want to up my game when it comes to drawing and rendering hands. Okay, so, okay, besides wanting to potentially do a video of, like, studying hands, can I just go on a side tangent again? Like, I genuinely struggled in like rendering the hands, but not in the way you think. See, breaking down the hands was pretty easy in the rough sketch, you know, draw a box, draw some sausages, draw where the joints are. I mean, yeah, that part's easy. But for whatever reason, like, whenever I get to refining the sketch and then lining, my brain, it just has a hard time thinking, oh, this looks fine. And I think it has to do with the fact that whenever I am breaking down and then drawing the hands, I don't always, like, see it. I was like, oh, right now it's a plain hand. I can see the fully rendered hands in my head. I guess I just kind of have a weird disconnect in my brain to where I have to actively tell myself, just stick with it. It seems weird to you now because there is no shading, there is no highlighting. Like, just stick with this. The hands are fine. They're fine. Just to try to get myself to not overthink the damn hands. And you know, I would be right. I would always be right. Like, once I add the rendering, I'm just like, oh, okay. I think it does have to do with, like, seeing the shapes. I mean, this isn't really the first time I struggled with, you know, trying to think that the hands look fine, but my brain is like, no, they are not fine, when really they just need a little bit of rendering. I had this problem a couple of years ago, back when I made my my Twisted Wonderland characters as Harp binders drawings when I drew Jamil. So I did have this problem with Jamil. Like, I had to add these shadows in the refined sketch, so that way my brain's like, oh, okay, you don't need to focus on this too much. So it is what it is. But yeah, once I rendered the hands, they turned out to be my favorite part of this particular study. And this is also why I want to up my game. Like, I like how they're drawn. I like how they can be rendered. I mean, hey, I ain't complaining. I'm a freak who likes drawing hands. They're just so expressive and fun to draw, like I mentioned early on. It's like, I mean, okay, hot take, I simply think everyone should just draw hands and actually be proud that they did so in the first place, even if you're in the awkward stages of the art journey. I mean, believe me, hands are hard to draw, but it's also very rewarding to be able to draw the hands without much issue in your respective art style. Of course, you know, it really does depend on the art style, and if you're studying anatomy, which is already a pain in the ass, try drawing anatomy in another person's art style. That is a humbling thing you can do for yourself. Though, once again, I am just a freak who likes drawing hands. My final thoughts on the rendering process, okay, what can I say? I adore how the colors harmonize with each other. Like, I like how there's purple in the shading, and yet the light source is kind of like this orange to yellow. And I love that despite them being opposites on the color wheel, like, it works out so beautifully, and just, I don't know. I adore it. I also like colors, but we all kind of knew that with all my past work. Alrighty, and with that being said, coming around the bend is the third and final study to conclude day 3 of my studies. Honestly, this really is the one I'm the most proud of. I love the dynamic lighting. I love how in the original illustration the purples and yellows work together, like I mentioned earlier. And that unhinged smile and look in his eyes, man, like, I love unhinged expressions. But yeah, all my hard work has culminated to this. With 3 days of studying under my belt, I think it's about time that I apply what I learn into my own finished drawing. So without further ado, I do the final drawing. So now it's time to apply what I learned and put it all into practice. I decided to draw my boy Lucian because, hey, if I'm going to be finalizing all of my hard work, I may as well go in without copying from a reference again. And oh boy, that was a struggle in of itself. However, I did end up sort of going through a moody atmosphere, which you'll see later on. And truth be told, I actually think this version of Lucian makes it look like he does have his own illustrated card. I thought about giving him a more fearful expression, but his expression looks more like a, well, oh boy, fine, you can see me transform or whatever, just I hope you know what you're doing. Which does, in a way, give me an idea for a potential vignette for him. Like, maybe the first years are like, hey Lucian, we have to do this report on supernatural creatures, and we decided on werewolves, and well, you're the only werewolf that we know of here in Night Raven College, so, you know, could we see you transform and, like, see how you act and whatnot? And he's just like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, come on, man. But he does reluctantly agree, and he's just like, I do hope you guys know what you're doing and like what you're getting yourselves into, because I cannot make any sort of promises. But anyways, vignette potential aside, I don't know why I made the pupils for Lucian's eye kind of look like a mix of like a slit and the standard circle for the pupil, but he is a werewolf, so I guess in a way that does make sense for him. And not gonna lie, figuring out how to do eye bags in this particular style, that is a challenge in of itself. Like, the only character who's got the closest things to eye bags is Edia's Shroud, and a lot of that is covered up with colors, even though you can barely see like scratch marks that are kind of, indicative of, dark circles under one's eyes, which, interesting challenge considering Lucian, he doesn't get a whole lot of sleep, plus he is a werewolf, so that entails, him staying up late. But anyways, I believe Clipsio paint crashed on me again, but this time on Lucian, which, not cool, man. Not cool. Lighting this wasn't too bad. I did accidentally make Lucian's hair kind of flowy. I do blame the fact that a lot of the cards I did study from, had flowing hair. But fortunately, because Lucian does have long and I guess more weighted hair, I don't know why, but I always make werewolf's hair like poofy. Like, I don't know why I do this, I just do. So there's not too much flow to it, which honestly helps. I figured out like at least a way to do the eye bags, and it's kind of a mix of the opaque and the transparent watercolor brushes again, which those two brushes have been a major lifesaver for me when it came to these particular studies. And honestly, I did struggle a lot initially, because it's just like, okay, I have to come up with my own light source now. I have to figure out like where I want the shadows to be, where I want the light source to come from, etc., etc. I did, for whatever reason, lean more towards like, I want want to say kind of a brownish purple for the shading. But then I figured, well, I mean, if it's going to be like either the moon reflecting on Lucian or maybe someone's using magic to light the way, like maybe he's guiding him to the forest or whatever. He's like, alright, well, hope you know what you're getting yourself into. I did add a purple and blue gradient on the skin and parts of the jacket and hair later on. And I think that really helps with the kind of lighting that I wanted to go for with this final piece. So yeah, once I did add all those elements together and, you know, once everything started coming together, I was just more and more excited to be like, I really want to see this project through. I want to see where all of my hard work is, like, I want to put it all to good use. And god damn it, I did. Once again, the hair was my favorite thing to render, especially the more intensive part, like on Lucian's left, but it would be art right. For the eyes, I wanted to try to do that fun glowy thing that wolf eyes do at night, but I don't know how Yana would have done it in her style, so I just opted to do something similar with the Zoom-Sitter Malleus card. I know, what a cop-out. You may notice that throughout the studying process, I would occasionally pull up the time-lapse. I don't know why, I just wanted to see like how it all comes together, like in a short-form content kind of way. I don't know, I'd be weird like that. But, yeah, besides the rambling, the jacket was once again the bane of my existence. But oh well. Actually, now that I think about it and look back on it, Lucian's jacket looks a lot better compared to the previous studies, which I'll put on the screen right now for all of you to compare. And once you all see the final image, you'll probably see that I improved a lot because of these studies. And yeah, I don't know. I think I like this take of Lucian, but Twisted Wonderland edition. Well, Twisted Wonderland art style edition a whole lot more, since with the previous studies I've done, it was kind of more based off the, not only the sprites, but also the live 2D models that are used in the game itself. Which, I mean, nothing wrong with that, because they still technically follow the art style that is set for the game, so I mean, I don't know. But I guess I just really, really wanted that more illustrated look, like why try to pull for cards in the first place? I like pretty art. I like seeing art that inspires me. I want to eat the art, essentially. But yeah, I didn't want to, you know, go off of the sprites in the live 2D models. Like, I just wanted to be uncomfortable for a little while and just, you know, study. But yeah, here around the bend is the final product. And oh my god, I am really proud of myself for sticking through with this project. I'm extremely happy with how all 4 of these turned out. And 4 drawings over the course of 4 days, which totals to roughly 15 hours of work. Hey, that's actually not too shabby. I've given up a lot sooner than that. And honestly, all of this hard work really paid off, and I'm really happy with what I got. And now, all I'm gonna say is that I am so glad all of you stuck till the end of this video. And yeah, thanks for sticking with me even with my long absence. And I really do hope to make an effort to, you know, be a little more active, share my little hyperfixations with y'all, and just overall have fun. But that is all for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you would like, feel free to hit the subscribe button and donate a like to the Voidling Fund, where 1 like equals 1 Voidling getting an ounce of serotonin. Thank you all again, and I will see you all again real soon. Goodbye!